Hey, what's up, guys? It's Technical Tim here, and I want to thank everyone so much who's been liking all my videos and subscribing to the channel. And if you like this video, I'd really appreciate it. And I'm not back at home yet. I'll have my equipment and everything, and my camera and video all back tomorrow. It's right after the card right now, and I just want to give a quick recap video. And if you're not familiar with these videos, I just kind of go through each fight and just talk about it from a broad and general perspective, from a betting and technical perspective. And I kind of just say what I was thinking before the fight and what I was thinking after the fight for each fight. And overall, I didn't have much action on this card. I had about 6 units and I won about 2, so it was a good night. The only pick that didn't hit was a small little play on Marcos, but we hit Yedong Song and we hit the Jones and Chiesa parlay. The Jones fight was obviously a little interesting, and we'll get to that. But yeah, overall, it's kind of I didn't love this card all that much. I thought a lot of fighters should have been favorites, but I wasn't all that confident in them, and a few underdogs did win on this card. So I was glad. I was really happy with my stayaways, but I'm glad we kind of got out of this card where I thought we picked our spots wisely and kind of profited and kind of just got out of here and didn't want to play too much action. But I'm going to have a lot of plays on this card. I'm probably going to have about 5 money line plays, which is kind of a lot for me. So just be watching previews ahead. But let's go through the card real quick. Avila Kenzad. Kenzad looked, or Avila looked really good. I was impressed. I didn't have any action on this fight. And her overall just manipulation using frames on Kianzad in the clinch to land knees and other strikes was really impressive. And she has really crazy power for women's MMA. Like, even on the regionals, when she hits people, they just seem to kind of go down. So she has pretty crazy power, and I think she's going to do well in the division. I think she's going to beat a lot of girls. Like, I liked her overall ground game on the floor from back mount too. It was actually very sophisticated for women's MMA. And yeah, the women's MMA is really evolving. It was just going to take some time because it hasn't been around as long as men's MMA. Like, men's MMA like 8 years ago wasn't nearly as good as it is now. So it'll take some time. Eventually there's going to be a lot of like Amanda Nunes type of fighters. I think it'll just take some time. Nardiev and Rencounter. I didn't play this. I saw a lot of people thought Nardiev was like a good parlay leg, and I disagreed. But a lot of the success Nardiev had in his fight versus Prazeres was, even though he dominated the fight and the striking, in the grappling, he easily could have lost that fight. Prazeres would have top position, and I think that fight, compared to this Chance Rencounter fight, showed the superiority of wrestling over Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as far as the techniques to control top position and the tendencies to control top position are just superior in wrestling than Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I'm not saying wrestling's way better than Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I just think there's certain aspects, especially in the top control of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, that aren't always that good, and I'll kind of talk about him for a second. But Prazeres would keep going to mount, and against a strong, powerful kid, kind of like Ismail Nardiev, who's lacking in technique but is athletic and explosive, anytime Prazeres would move to mount, right at that split second, Nardiev would hit a bridge and get up. He did it, I think, 3 times. What Rencounter did in this fight, I'm kind of mad that I didn't see. I did like Nardiev's overall takedown defense, but I should have known that Rencounter very well could have got this to the floor. I just didn't think, I think where I didn't play this fight, but where I kind of underestimated Rencounter as an underdog was, I think I just kind of didn't think his striking was all that good. And like a couple of his regional fights, his takedowns didn't all look all that great, and Ismail seemed to have first layer takedown defense. But if Rencounter does get him down, Rencounter's a wrestler, and he's going to sit in half guard. And that's the difference between what Prazeres should have done and what Rencounter did. Prazeres kept trying to move to mount, and that brings the hips of Nardiev in play to where he can explode out with really not even much technique. Rencounter sat in half guard pretty much most of the fight, and Nardiev couldn't get up. And I should have known a junior college wrestler would have done something like that. And And like I could have told you once they were on the mat, Rencounter would have been better. I just didn't think he would get it there. But I think this fight also just illustrates the that you got to be careful when it comes to like Austrian or like European type of wrestling champions. Like American wrestling, I'm not just saying this because I'm American. Dagestani wrestling and like sambo, and I really like their wrestling too. I think it's very comparable to folk style wrestling and actually superior in ways. But folk style wrestling's American wrestling, and dude, it's better. And these guys, because it focuses on holding people down, and you can just see it in this fight. Like Ismail's like a 5-time national Austrian champion, and people were talking about that, and it kind of reminded me of when people were ranting about how good Mike Grundy was, because he got like bronze at the Commonwealth Games. But I'm just telling you, there's JUCO guys who didn't even like do all that well in JUCO who could out wrestle a lot of these guys like Grundy and Nardiev. They just can. It's because wrestling in America is just more, there's more depth to it. And the techniques of folk style wrestling are just way more valuable for MMA, especially on the mat. And yeah, so I just kind of wanted to make that point. Sorry, I know you guys probably think I'm annoying sometimes when I talk about wrestling, but it is just really important. And you can tell, like, we've been winning a lot of grappling fights lately, even kind of like Chiesa and Sanchez. And it's just some of these little concepts, and they can be learned, and they're really important for capping grappling, because overall, bettors struggle betting grappling. And you kind of saw that tonight in a few fights. Marshman Shabazian, yeah, like I still don't know how good Shabazian's striking is. I think he's more of a wrestler, and it showed. He did a single leg, and he ran the pipe tonight, and he is high level wrestling. I talked about that in my final thoughts video. I am super impressed by his wrestling, even against Darren Stewart, because I think Darren Stewart has really underrated takedown defense. And Shabazian just like, he medaled in the state of California. And the reason why that's impressive is because California is highly populated, so he had to beat a lot of people there. And I don't know if this is still the outlook. If anyone knows, if anyone wrestled in California, please comment below. But I think California only has like one class. So if you medaled, you're literally the top like 6 guys or top 7 guys in. I don't know how many medals they have. Like usually it's 6. Like in Missouri, where I'm from, it's 6. But I think it's like 6 to 8 in California. That means like you're a top 6 to 8 wrestler in your weight class in the entire state, where states like Missouri have 3 or 4 classes, meaning like the big schools are 1 class. And so I'm just saying, like, there's a lot of kids that he beat if you beat people in California. Like being a California state medalist is really impressive. And I love his wrestling, and you can kind of see that in his game tonight. And I played small on Shabazian submission, like 50, nothing big. I really didn't even have any other on-track plays. I had Shabazian, and I had another on-track play that didn't hit. I forgot what it was. Maybe when I go through the fights, I'll remember, but this one hit, so that was cool. Didn't have like real action on it though. Yedong Song and Perez. We had action here, and Song hit. He got a quick KO, so it's hard to read too much in the fight, but I did look, and the fight played out for like, I think it was a little over 2 minutes, and Song was outstriking him 9-1. And so like anytime in a fight like this, a KO can happen for your guy or against it. And I don't always I look for round winners. That's kind of my philosophy. And I knew Song could get a KO. I knew it was possible, and Perez could have got a KO too. But I did think Song getting a KO was more possible because he lands more. But he kind of, even up to that KO, it only played out for 2 minutes, so you can't know for sure. But he was landing a lot more, and his in and out movement, and just his hand speed seemed to be superior for Perez. And I just thought that was a bit of a checkmate fight. Like, Perez is just kind of a boxer, and he was outgunned, in my opinion. Marcos Gaudelia, this is the one fight I missed. And I arbitraged some of this, but then I kept a unit on Marcos, like I said in my final thoughts video. And like Gaudelia looked good. I do think Marcos kind of fought with a bad strategy. I think she should have tried to push the pace a little more. And I'm also surprised Gaudelia. I thought Gaudelia was smart by not trying to grapple because that can kind of tire herself out. But I couldn't have anticipated that. So I figured like both of these girls would go for takedowns at times, and neither of them did. So it kind of just ended up being like a uneventful kickboxing match that Gaudelia won. So good on Gaudelia for getting that win. Missed that one, so is what it is. I'm not too mad at plus 240 though, so I don't really care. Vera Hernandez, yeah, like Vera, he got he kind of dominated here. To be honest, I don't have much to say here. I know Hernandez had some success with the ground and pound when he got top position, but it was just kind of whatever. Alan Melendez, this was a great stay away by me. I had talked about early with on the podcast with Gugabe how I had thought Melendez was maybe a good play here as an underdog. And in my final thoughts video, I had mentioned, the reasoning for that was because Allen tends to not throw that much. If you look at his fight metric numbers, I think they're like 2.2 strikes landed per minute, which is super fucking low. And I was like thinking maybe this could be kind of like an activity fight, which is the reason why I thought Song was a really good play down here. But then I was like, I kind of watched more tape and I realized Allen will throw if you actually engage a little bit. And Melendez is a guy who will come forward, and Melendez did start coming forward a lot. And his aggression kind of brought Allen out to be more aggressive. So I was like, and Allen will throw enough. He'll throw more than you're throwing. Like, but he kind of just, in a lot of fights, he'll kind of fight to what his opponent's doing. And I thought Melendez being aggressive would make Allen throw a little more, and Allen threw way more than he usually did. So I just figured I should stay away from this fight and say, fuck it. Like, I don't want to deal with this and chase an underdog that probably won't hit. So stayed away. Chiesa Sanchez, I saw a lot of people playing Diego as a dog, and it's funny because originally I could have understood that, and then I taped and I thought I capped Chiesa around 90%. I talked about it in my final thoughts. I parlayed Chiesa up with Jones, and so that hit as well. And Chiesa was just this fight literally went exactly how I thought it would in my final thoughts. It's always nice when a fight goes to a script. Even sometimes when you get picks right, they don't go exactly how you thought, but this was grappling heavy, and usually that's when I can like and it was kind of top man importance heavy too. And Chiesa was just going to be the top man here, and Sanchez's wrestling was being super overrated, and Chiesa kind of was using his leverage, and he was doing a good job of maintaining the back as well. I did think Chiesa would have a chance at a submission, even though Diego's never been subbed. And Chiesa kind of tried that, but Diego just did a good job fighting hands. But I'm glad I didn't play any inside the distance. I bet a lot of people were upset who played that. But I just figured I'd parlay him up. I was like, fuck it. Chiesa is not going to be held down here. He's not going to be outstruck. The only way Diego wins is if he out-cardios Chiesa, and I'd never seen any issues with Chiesa's cardio, especially in grappling heavy fights. So I thought this was just an easy money play, and I didn't understand the Diego love. Rockhold Jan, this was another good stay away. I thought Luke was going to win. I thought he would have success with kicks and maybe get some grappling going at times. But I was just like, I haven't liked the way Luke's looked in his last few fights, and I think he's just not a world-class fighter anymore. I think he's just too hittable in the pocket, and his boxing is just not crisp. He can throw some straight punches and some good kicks, but if he had good wrestling, because his top game's so world class, he could still get by even past his athletic prime and beating a lot of guys. But you just saw tonight, he always goes for that body lock takedown up against the cage, and Jan was stopping it, and Jan fucking knocked him dead. That was fucking ruthless. A lot of crazy knockouts tonight. But yeah, I didn't play that. Oh man, Askren Masvidal. Yeah, I didn't play. I decided to stay away. I figured it was going to be Askren decision or Jorge was going to win. I thought Jorge had a much. If anyone got a finish, it was going to be Jorge, in my opinion. That was kind of my opinions on the fight. So I wasn't too definitive either way. And man, oh man, like from a non-betting perspective, just like I don't really give like a narrative based type of analysis. You guys know me, and that's why I actually call myself technical Tim. It's not because I'm saying I know way more technique than everyone else. It's because I just try to focus on technique because I think that's what wins betting. I think when you bring in shit like someone's not mentally there and like narratives like that, I think that's just dumb stuff to focus on. Like when people try to like cap fights based on interviews and things like that, I think that's just dumb. I just watch tape. That's all I do, and that's why I call myself my name, just so you guys know. But I know that was kind of like a sidetrack, but this is kind of like just talking about like narrative. This was probably the best KO ever in the UFC, and I don't even think I'm being the prisoner of the moment. But if you if you just put in the fact that it was the quickest in UFC history, just like the actual KO was fucking awesome. And just like the way Ben, like the aftermath of it, the way Ben was just stiff and Masvidal followed up, which I know a lot of people were giving Masvidal shit, but that was just kind of an emotional fight in the lead up. So I don't fault Masvidal that much for it. I mean, if he didn't do it, that would probably been better, but I don't fault him too much. But also just like the way Masvidal was screaming at him after and then impersonated him, and like the way Ben was limp. And then when you just like tie in the context of the lead up to the fight and then just how split it was from a betting community, it's like when you put all the contextual parts to it, that was probably the best KO ever. And if not, it was definitely up there. But enough about like narrative and stuff like that. But just from the fight itself and from a betting perspective, it's hard to know for sure because it happens so quick to like how this should be capped. But I do think this shows that just like it's hard to say anything because it really doesn't prove too much because we didn't get to see if Ben's grappling was going to get going. But like at the same time, Ben doesn't. I mean, that would have knocked out anyone. So I don't want to like give Ben any shit about his chin or anything because that literally would have knocked out everyone on the planet. But it just goes to show like Ben is vulnerable to get landed on clean on the feet, and kind of the two fights he really didn't fight many great guys. Like I know he fought kind of like Koreshkov and Lima in their infancy, and that was a long time ago, but he really hasn't fought all that many great guys. And the two fights he's been in the UFC, I know they're real small sample and they happen quick. He's been like brutally pretty much like almost knocked out twice. So it just goes to show like he's very hittable, and he never has responded well to strikes. Like he even almost got knocked out by an up kick one of the few other times outside of the UFC that he got landed on clean. But at the same time, the knockout happened quick. It's hard to know, but I think just from like, I think the reason this fight is so perfect is because there can still be debate after. I'm glad I'm not part of the debate because I just stayed away. But I feel like people are still going to claim Masvidal. That doesn't show us anything. And I feel like other people are going to like talk shit, you know, the Masvidal bettors about how Askren sucks. Like it's just going to divide what was already divided even more, which is so funny. So that was a perfect ending to that fight. But I'm glad I didn't play it. Holm Nunez didn't play. I figured Nunez would win, and she looked really good. It's really all I have to say about this fight. Like Nunez looked legit, was landing a lot of diversity in strikes. I do think if Holly could have got out of that first round, she wasn't getting landed on too clean. I mean, she was getting landed on, but she wasn't getting landed on so clean to where I thought she was like for sure going to get knocked out. That head quick kick kind of came out of nowhere. And I do think like Holly was circling off laterally very well in that first round to where I do think this fight would have played out. Like I think this fight could have actually gone to decision if Holly could have gotten out of that dangerous first round. But Nunez, I still think would have won the fight because she's really technical. I think she's like underrated as a technical striker. I think people like think she's kind of a lot of power based, but she's super technical. And those calf kicks, I had talked about that in my Final Thoughts video. A lot of those found their home. Then Jones Santos just closed out a parlay. I mean, obviously Jones didn't look like the value side, but it was a weird fight. I think what happened was, I think Jones didn't. So what happened was, my theory of this fight was Santos wouldn't knock out Jones, and I do think like Santos knocking Jones dead is super low percentage. But what is kind of like what I maybe overlooked, but I don't think I could have anticipated this, so I'm not even like mad about parlaying it. Even though I won, I still will get mad if I like was not the value side, and I wasn't the value side here, obviously, because that fight was closer than I thought it was going to be. But it just looks like Santos actually can win some rounds, because even though Santos kind of threw the amount of volume I expected him to, and I didn't expect him to win via knockout, and I didn't expect him to like land all that much, and like he landed, but I thought he landed about how many strikes I suspected that he would land. Like he kind of landed what I thought he would. It's just Jones landed like I thought Jones was going to land like 3 times more. And I think the reason why is, if you rewatch that fight, Jones barely threw punches, and it looked like his strategy was to just be kick heavy to stay out of range. But Santos had kind of a weapon for that range with his leg kicks. And anytime Jones would like throw some kicks, Santos would counter with punches as well. And it just made Jones super hesitant, to where Jones wasn't throwing that much. So it made the fight close. So I think just kind of like the overall striking style of Santos made Jones a little hesitant, and it made the fight kind of weird. And that's really it. I do think Jones won 3-2 or maybe 4-1. I don't think Santos won the fight, but I don't think it was like out of the question that he won 3 rounds, just because Jones kind of wasn't doing things in a couple rounds. But I still thought Jones won the fight. But Santos looked really legit, considering he was on one leg too. So I don't really have much to say about the fight. I think it was just kind of one of those things where Jones was hesitant to throw punches because he didn't want to get in the pocket. So he focused on kicks, which is a fine strategy, but it just, he was getting countered on some kicks with punches, and Santos was just landing that leg kick. So kind of Jones thought he could be out of range, but Santos was landing hard leg kicks and could kind of have his own success, even if Jones was fighting in a range where he thought he couldn't be hit. So that's kind of my overall thoughts on that. But the next card is the Durandamine Lad card. I have my eye currently on 5 money lines. I'm counting right now. I'm not going to tell you guys yet. I'll tell you guys as the videos come out, because I don't want to like jump the gun, because sometimes my opinions can change after I tape. Like last week, I did not expect to play Kiesa, a type of parlay. I don't even play parlays that often, but once I taped, I was just like, he's going to fucking roll Diego in the grappling. So yeah, like my opinions can change, but I'm eyeing a lot of these. This is so grappling heavy, guys. We're gonna fucking rake in this card. I mean, you can't always know if you're gonna win the card. Like card to card, it's hard to predict. You can only predict you'll win in the long term. But these are grappling heavy, and these fights are just kind of a gold mine, in my opinion. Close odd grappling fights, fuck yeah, that's where we're gonna do well. So, thanks for listening, guys, and yeah, I'll send out some more videos tomorrow. So, thanks, bye.